Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the first episode of 2024. This is Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's professional kickboxer, the mechanic, Brandon Catino. This week we're talking Conor McGregor. We're talking Francis Ngannou. We'll get to both those subjects. But first, you know what it is. Head over to fightersfirst.shop. Support the fighters. Support the brand. Let our apparel be a part of your story. Of course, got the mechanic collection. Cody Jerome, who's getting ready to head over to One Championship and fight some Muay Thai and kickboxing over there. We'll talk about that next week when I interview Cody. Robert Verascio, one of Brandon's teammates, is tearing it up. So all that stuff is over at fightersfirst.shop. Brandon, how you feeling in the new year? Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year to you, man. Feeling good, feeling great, man. Just living life.
Well, at least in football, we got to end on a victory, right? Over Philly, which is, rough season, but it's over now. And we finished on a high note. So we finished, on a win. It's the best we can ask for, even though the Giants just completely tore up their entire coaching staff and everything else. So we have that going for us in 2024. We got some great fights coming up this year as well. A lot of talk about UFC 300. A lot of talk about what PFL and Bellator are going to do together with their champions versus champions and their super pay-per-views. But Brandon, we're going to start off this show talking about one of your favorite subjects. I know you kind of almost cringe anytime we talk about Conor McGregor. But Conor made news after the new year. He announced he's finally returned to the cage almost 3 years since his injury in July 2021 against Dustin Poirier when he broke his leg. Conor says, and I say Conor says because this has not been announced by the UFC or anybody. And I also want to get your thoughts on another part of this subject as well, because I know you like to go out to Vegas around International Fight Week. Conor says in June, International Fight Week, which is a week earlier this year, he will be fighting Michael Chandler at 185. There's a lot to unpack there. Let's start off, before we even get to the weight, let's start off with unpacking Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. They both coached against each other in tough. Of course, Michael Chandler's team just destroyed Conor's team. On paper, how do these two match up?
I think it's going to be two guys. Like, Michael Chandler can wrestle, but he will engage in a firefight. That's how he is now, man. Like his nickname is Iron Mike, as well, because he likes to throw those hands. So this is a fight that Conor McGregor definitely wants, because it's going to be a guy who will stand with him.
So when I think about that, I think the last guy that stood with him broke his leg, and then of course that went to the ground. And Dustin Poirier did kind of, especially the second fight, definitely took advantage of the ground game and kind of made Conor work there. We know Chandler can wrestle. We've seen him. He's a world, I think he's like Division II All-American or something like that. Division I. And he has that pedigree. And we've seen him scramble, especially if he gets hurt. He kind of goes just default, right? Like he goes into that scramble. If Conor hurts him, that's what he's going to do. The fight being announced by Conor, and obviously UFC hasn't backed it up at all, kind of makes me puzzled, because I'm wondering, is Dana on board with this? Because Dana has been announcing fights like crazy. He just announced the Oliveira fight. He just announced Poirier fighting at 299. He's been just, pumping up this whole, especially going into UFC 300. You would think, hey, I got this news about Conor. Let me kind of like at least tease it, right? And he hasn't. He hasn't at all. For one, can you see this fight actually happening at 185 pounds when you're talking about a guy like Conor McGregor that entered the UFC at 145 pounds, and through his body transformation, he's at 185 now, when we thought 170, he wasn't really the biggest guy in the cage. And we know Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, you just said it, Iron Mike, he doesn't care. He'll fight you at 250. He doesn't care. He'll go into that cage wherever just to get his hands on you. Is this a real fight, Brandon? Or is this just Conor trolling the entire internet again?
No, I want to say for the fight, yes, because this was the talk. The talk was either that this fight was either going to happen either at UFC 300 or it was going to happen at International Fight Week. So Conor came out, said International Fight Week. Now, do I think the fight's going to happen at 185? No, I think the highest he'll go is 170. That's where I think the troll part is 185. maybe that's why it really hasn't announced it, because again, I think Michael Chandler did say like he'll follow Conor anywhere. It could be at whatever weight, but I'm sure the UFC isn't probably trying to have him fight at 185 anyway. So I think that's really why it probably hasn't really announced, because they probably maybe haven't really come up with the final weight for this fight.
Yeah, I think Dana probably just bashed his head against the wall when Conor said Conor released that statement, because I don't even think he knows what to do with this guy at this point. He was supposed to fight last year against Michael Chandler at the end of Tough. Didn't get into the USADA testing pool till late. Then the UFC divorced with USADA to start this year, so who knows how they're doing their drug testing going forward. It's probably going to be in-house like it was before USADA, which means, some people might fail. Some people might be like, meh. Uh, Especially when you see some of their testing results from overseas. They've always been their own tester in international markets. But there was a large contingent of fighters led by Georges St. Pierre talking, before that one at USADA, one at, what was the other one? Was it WADA? What was the
Yeah,
other testing?
Wada and Vada.
Yeah, and they were all doing the international style, Olympic style testing. And it took a lot to get the UFC to even start to work with USADA. Now that they're not a thing anymore, you see a fighter like Conor McGregor, who was 145 pounds, 155 pounds, double champ, and now he's ballooning around. I don't think it's any secret that he was on the juice when he was recovering from his injury. I don't think anybody was shocked by that. But for him to get back in the testing pool, which he did towards the end of the year, meant that he was at least kind of clean at the end of the year. I agree with you. I don't see it at 185. I think it'll happen at 170. But I also don't think it's going to happen. I think Conor is trolling the internet just like he did with his multiple retirements. Like, how many times is Conor McGregor going on Twitter and be like, I retire, I'm done. And then we talk about it for a few weeks and he's like, oh, I got the itch again, I'm coming back. Like Dana said, Conor doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the money. Since that Floyd fight and he got that $100 million paycheck, he doesn't need the money. He has not just Proper, but now he has Forge, which is growing like crazy, along with the Black Forge in Dublin, which is one of his hotels. We have a couple forged fighters in Kate and Connor and Muay Thai with Fighters First. And you can see his brand spreading all the way across. Now it's, in the United States, and now it's in Canada. And he's making a lot of money on these other ventures outside of fighting. And Brandon, if he does come back in June, what does a guy who's been out of the cage 3 years recovering from a broken leg look like?
Yeah, I mean that's what we're going to be waiting for. But like I said, I mean it was a devastating injury. So of course it took him a little bit longer to come back, to heal up. So I'm glad that he took his time on the healing process. Like he didn't just rush back or anything like that. Because like I said, that was a bad injury. So like I said, we'll just have to wait and see.
And I also go a step further. It's a guy who's won one fight in almost 8 years. That one Cowboy Cerrone fight, and that was it. And that was another guy who was on his way out the door. By the way, a side note, if anybody's interested, Dana just challenged, or Cowboy wanted to ride Dana's bull. He has a bull in the PFL, which is a professional bull riders league. And he offered him $100,000 if he could last on Dana's bull for 8 seconds. So Cowboys staying relevant, Cowboys staying busy, in case y'all are curious. And I've also heard word about Cowboy might be doing some bare knuckle too. So leave a comment. Let us know. Do you think your boy Conor McGregor is going to be back in the cage in June? And if so, is 185 realistic? Will he be probably at 170? We'll see with that. I want to get your thoughts real quick, though, before we go to the next subject, Brandon. You go out to International Fight Week almost every year. Are you going a week earlier this year? Because it's not on July 4th this year.
I know it's actually crazy because actually that same weekend, I think I was actually planning on going to Miami this year. So
okay.
I don't know. So we'll see. I mean the plan was to go to Miami, but hey, you never know. Things can change.
Stay tuned to Brandon's social media. You'll find out soon. Hopefully the wife gives him permission to go where he wants this year. Because that's a boys trip, right?
No, well, no, the Miami one, yes, the Miami one, yes, but usually for International Fight Week, it can the wife comes too. She likes to go to Vegas.
Because you went out for SummerSlam last time, right?
It was Money in the Bank 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it
Money in
was
the
Money in
Bank.
the Bank. Last year, we were supposed to go to International Fight Week, but we went a week early because we got some. I guess they had changed the date because originally it was supposed to be the date that we had scheduled for, and then next thing they said like, oh no, it's the following week now, so we missed it by a week. So we were just out there just having a good time, meeting friends because we have friends out
Oh,
there. So
you ran into Carla, didn't you? Or you got to meet Carla as far as that?
that
Was
was
that
2 years
2 years ago?
ago. They
Oh,
were
okay.
doing International Fight Week. Yeah,
Wow, time flies. Time flies when
I
you're
know.
having fun. And we've been doing this show way too long that we can't even keep track of Brandon's schedule. Uh, Other subject today, Brandon, Francis Ngannou. We talked a little about him last episode on our Battleground episode that we did before the end of the year. Uh, and let us know, do you want us to do more Battleground episodes? Because we can slip it in the schedule. Francis Ngannou has agreed to fight Anthony Joshua March 8th in Saudi Arabia. We know why. Like, we don't even need to talk about why. The why is the money. He's going to make twice as much on this fight that he did in the Tyson Fury fight. This is the biggest payday of Anthony Joshua's career, and Anthony Joshua's been fighting for quite a while and is a former heavyweight champion. And depending on which belt, I think he might actually have another belt now, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't have a belt
Okay.
yet.
We know why he's fighting boxing, right? But even Francis came out with, I think he was on Ariel on Monday, and he was like, I don't know if I fight MMA this year anymore because the winner of this fight fights Tyson Fury. So he might be rematching Tyson Fury later this year, or it'll be Anthony Joshua and Fury if Anthony Joshua gets through. And Ngannou. This is another story with multiple layers, Brandon. For one, let's just talk about the fight real quick. How does he match up with Anthony Joshua? We saw he looked pretty good against Tyson Fury.
Yeah, I mean he did look good against Tyson Fury, but again, man, to me, like I said, I don't know, I mean, of course, I would still lean towards Joshua on this one, but hey, like I said, Francis still in the lab, still working hard. If he's still hanging out with the Mike Tyson, hey, you never know what could happen. Like I said, he did drop Fury. You never know, he could drop Joshua again. We have seen Joshua get dropped, and sometimes he hasn't gone back up like his time against Andy.
Andy Ruiz.
Yep. Yeah, that guy. But then again, but Joshua, he changed up his training, has a new trainer now, and everything like that. So I mean, he's kind of more looking like more like the monster that we know of Anthony Joshua. Back in the old days. So I mean, I think either way, man, it's gonna be a banger. It's gonna be two big guys, two strong guys. Just throwing some heat, and we'll see what happens.
I don't. I think on two sides. I think one side, this is a better matchup for Ngannou because size wise, right? Like Tyson Fury is a big guy, 6'9",
Mhm.
big hulking guy, and Anthony Joshua is closer to Francis Ngannou's size. So these are two guys going to match up size wise pretty well. I want to say Francis might even be an inch taller than Anthony Joshua. Um, but the thing about Anthony Joshua compared to Tyson Fury is Anthony's a much more technical boxer, and that's not saying Tyson Fury's not, but Anthony kind of stays in the box. He kind of stays in that stance. He doesn't really throw too many winging punches. He pretty much is going to come directly at you and use his more technical skills. He doesn't try to bull you over, kind of like Tyson Fury does sometimes. He doesn't do any of that. Of course, all of this came together because it was supposed to be Joshua and Wilder, and then Wilder lost.
Mhm.
And that just threw everything up because now Wilder has to rematch this and do that. And Wilder lost a huge payday by losing that fight. So now Francis Ngannou can step up, take that payday, see if he's a legitimate boxer or see if it was a fluke. He went 10 rounds with the undisputed champion of the world. So he's earned the right. Do I think he wins? No, I'm actually leaning towards Joshua as well. I think a lot of people are on the hype train, and I think that's not dismissing Francis Ngannou. I just think Anthony Joshua, when he's on his game, is that guy. We haven't seen before the Andy Ruiz stop. Like he was destroying everybody.
Mhm.
and then he got caught and he kind of was up and down. He had to kind of get his confidence back. I think the Anthony Joshua we're looking at right now is very hungry, and I think that's dangerous. That's not dismissing Francis Ngannou's skills. Francis Ngannou came up as a kickboxer and a boxer in France. People forget that. Like, he was always more known for his hands in MMA. He was that Mike Tyson of MMA, right? He would bull rush you and do all his things with his hands. And then he kind of developed wrestling, working with Extreme Couture and some other people. And now he's kind of a little bit more all-around mixed martial artist. But he came up being terrifying with his hands. And so he can throw punches. He can hit you. Tyson Fury found out. Tyson Fury went down. He can hit you. The other layer to this, though, is MMA. He was supposed to be the poster boy for the super fight division for PFL. He told PFL about this fight. PFL gave him their blessing, said, we're not going to stand in your way. Go make your money. Come back towards the end of the year. Maybe we could do something. That's a long shot, Brandon, because when he said on Monday, he was like, would I return MMA? Possibly. Is it a strong possibility? I don't know that. Brandon, Francis Ngannou is 37 years old. End of this year, he's turning 38 in September. Does he ever return to MMA?
I want to say yes, because I think he's a guy that will honor his contract. Like, he's an honorable guy like that, So I think he will return to MMA. Now, again, it doesn't have to be this year. It could be next year, because if he's still staying in the boxing, like after this fight, really, there's only really one more fight that he can do. Now, it depends, of course. Now, if he wins, then he has more options. But if he doesn't win, there's really only one more fight that probably the casual fan will still want to watch him box, and that
Jake
would be
Paul?
No. Nice try. No, that would be Deontay Wilder. Because again, they were the guys that were talking about maybe Deontay Wilder coming over to the PFL and them having like a mixed fight, with the gloves and everything like that. So I think that's really the only other boxing fight that maybe they could do, and they could do it, later on this year, man. Like I said, if Saudi Arabia is paying the money, like paying you the money like that, you're gonna take it. Like I said, heavyweight MMA has a long career, man. You could still be in your 40s and you could still be doing heavyweight MMA. Speaking of like people in the 40s, you got Andre.
Randy Couture.
Well,
I mean, you talk about
Randy
Extreme
Couture,
Couture
but
right
also
there.
too, like, I mean, currently you got Andre Arlovsky fighting this weekend. He's in his 40s, still going strong. So saying at heavyweight, they kind of age a little slower. So like say, so he can do these boxing fights and he can come back next year. And also too, I think really also what he's doing is, because everybody keeps asking like, oh well, who is he gonna fight if he fights in the PFL? As of right now, there might not be anybody there, so they're just so really by France taking these boxing fights, he's giving them more time to maybe find somebody or to build somebody that people can be like, oh okay, I can see this guy fighting him.
Yeah, realistically, I see if you wanted to play out like that, and I'm skeptical. I think we talked about Conor McGregor making that boxing money and not really needing to fight anymore. I mean, that might be Francis's lane too, because he's more interested in doing the ambassador work for Africa. He's more interested in doing some of the behind the scenes things with PFL that he's been doing that people don't know he's doing. Like, he's not necessarily fighting for them right now, but he is in Africa doing, communication works and trying to set up, big venues in Africa for them to do a show down the road. Of course, Saudi Arabia is also in the PFL with their money in the private fund league, or the private. I don't remember how they announced their investment fund, but the Saudi Arabia money is heavily into PFL as well. So there is a connection with all that. I don't know if we see him again. I really don't. I think if you want to talk that path, I think you're talking about, okay, Delia and Bader fight at the super fight card for the champions. The winner of that fights is Francis Ngannou later in the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would make sense if you want to do the super fight route. But that would also assume that, Delia wouldn't be, if say Delia beat Bader in February, maybe Delia goes back into the season tournament and then he's not available when Francis is available, especially if Francis loses to Joshua. I think Francis is in the great position where if Ngannou loses in boxing, nobody really expected him to win. So it doesn't hurt his stock. He's still coming back to MMA as the former UFC champion who never lost his belt. So that's a draw, no matter how they want to put it. Will they sell 300,000 buys in PFL for Francis Ngannou being on the card? I don't think so, because I don't think they sold that when he was in the UFC against Cyril Gane. I don't think he was ever really that big of a draw financially for the UFC. I think he was just the heavyweight champion. If it was a John Jones fight, that might have been different, but I don't believe, and maybe you can correct me, I don't believe the Cyril Gane was that heavy of a buy, was it?
I mean, I don't know, but again, the co-main event was the flyweight title fight. So I mean that could have helped boost it a little bit too.
They had the littlest people and the biggest people in the same card.
Yep.
But even go back before that, I know for a fact the when he beat Stipe for the belt, it wasn't a big draw either. It was, I think, maybe 150,000 buys, 200,000 buys. It wasn't like 600, 700. It wasn't Conor McGregor numbers, that's for sure. Which goes back even further. Like, he won the belt back in 21, so it's been almost 3 years since that, and he hasn't fought since 2022. We talked about that a little bit last time. The father time stops for nobody, and I know why he's doing the boxing, because if he doesn't do it now, when can he do it, right? Like you said, father time does not slow down for anybody. Do I think he honors his contracted fights in MMA? Yeah, maybe. I could see next year. I could see him doing it if he loses in boxing. But if he wins in boxing, and then he gets that Tyson Fury fight and he wins in that, now all of a sudden he's the heavyweight champion in boxing. Unless PFL wants to start promoting boxing, which I wouldn't put it past them, I wouldn't be surprised to see PFL do some of the things that one championship does with kickboxing and Muay Thai. And boxing being the bigger sport here in the United States, when they got Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou under contract. And Jake Paul's another guy who is talking about more boxing than he is MMA right now. Maybe PFL starts a boxing division. What do you think about that?
You never know. Like I said, I know Jake Paul, I think, has a boxing fight coming up in March. I was saying, like, they got Amanda Serrano, they got Savannah Marshall, Clarissa Sills. I think is still signed with them as well. But again, man, it's all about. I guess it's all about the time and the money. I think Jake Paul said that he needed, I guess, a full year to really start training, like a full year of training. So, like I said, supposedly, he has a cage in his gym. So maybe by the fall, maybe by that end of the year show, he'll be ready to make his MMA debut.
They got another woman that's been boxing lately too now under contract, because they bought Bellator, so they got Cyborg too. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
and I think she's boxing this month, right?
I think you're right. I think it could be like January 20th or something like that. I think.
Yeah, I think it's coming up next week. I think same weekend as Strickland and Duplessis, so I probably won't get as much attention, but yeah. Let us know what you think about Francis. Leave a comment. We love to talk to you guys, interact with us. Let me and Brandon, jump into conversation, fight with you a little bit, argue with a little bit, like we do with each other. Though lately, I haven't liked Brandon very much. We've been agreeing on a lot of stuff. It's very hard to fight somebody when you actually have the same opinion.
It's because Mike is listening now.
Have we been doing this show too long now that we're on the same wavelength with a lot of stuff?
That's it.
We got to get like Dan or somebody on the show, or somebody just got to like break it up a little bit. Let us know. Drop a comment. Of course, this weekend, UFC is back in action. So you got Ankalaev and Walker going. I think it's their second. Like, it's two, right? Yeah. Rematch. Hopefully, Manuel Cape doesn't get canceled this time with some of his comments after his fight. Jim Miller back in action. Big news I actually found out today, Brandon, is that Cain Velasquez will actually be in his opponent's corner for the first time, I think, in 3 years, being in a UFC an event. So he's got another court date coming up, so this might be the last time. I don't really know what's going on with his trial in his court. I think it keeps getting continued, so he keeps getting to drag it out. But we'll see. My guy Ricky Simone's back in action this weekend, so I'll be excited for that fight. Brandon's guy Phil Halls is in action. Andre Arlovsky. A lot of fun stuff to get the year started before they head into pay-per-view next week with Strickland and Duplessis. Leave your thoughts. Let us know. Check out FightersFirst.shop. Get the shirts. Support the fighters. I did not plan to match with Brandon today. It's another thing. Same wavelength. It's kind of scaring me. I don't really know what to make of that. We don't. At least we don't like the same hockey team. That's good. But my hockey team sucks anyway. So we won't talk about the Blackhawks right now, though we won yesterday. But anyway, any final thoughts today, Brandon, before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, man. Just hey guys, say like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And also be on the be on the lookout. Like say I know Mike like I said, Mike has some interviews coming up on the channel, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, just keep rocking with us.
I appreciate the plug. Yes, Unfiltered is coming back. We're bringing Unfiltered back. We're going to interview Cody Jerome ahead of his one championship debut coming later this year. We're going to talk to Brandon's teammate, Robert Verascio. He did win after the last fight we talked about, still undefeated, still killing it. Another first-round stoppage. And a little teaser. I'm actually talking to some of other Brandon's teammates, too, as well, about joining Fighters First. So stay tuned for some of those interviews. Legends House is going strong. If you're a professional wrestling fan, head over to legendshouse.com, Haus, the German spelling. We're going to be adding some more wrestlers there, too. A lot of growth coming in 2024. We're back in action with Art of MMA. We're going to be talking a lot more stuff with me and Brandon. We're going to get on the same page as far as our schedule goes and as far as some of the stuff we want to talk about and put some of these shows together a little bit better for you. And we're going to bring back all the other shows. Crossing Borders is coming back. Slam Town's coming back. So a lot of fun stuff for you guys and girls at home. Just leave a comment. Let us know what you like, and we'll try to give you the best we can each and every time. For the mechanic, Brandon Catino, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA, and we're out.